I applaud TELUS for joining Canadian broadcasters and giving RT the boot. Canadians stand with the people of Ukraine. I'm sure many do, maybe even most do. I also know that a lot of Russians in Canada watched Russian news. I guess they're being punished too, or they're being treated as untrustworthy, maybe, and that we have to save them from hearing things we don't want them to hear, maybe. So Trudeau's cabinet minister says ban them, and they ban them. I mean, would you argue with your boss if you're a cable company? And don't forget that the government is their boss. Look at the rationale. They have disinformation. What is disinformation, by the way? Spin? Is that what it means? One man's propaganda is another man's truth. Canadians get to make up their own minds, except when Trudeau says they can't, I guess. This from the CBC state broadcaster. This is not disinformation, apparently.
I do ask that because, given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Well, again, I'm going to defer to our partners in the public safety, the trained officials and experts in that area.
Can we get them banned too? Of course, big tech is getting in on it. Here's Google YouTube with a statement out of Europe. They say, due to the ongoing war in Ukraine, we're blocking YouTube channels connected to RT and Sputnik, that's another Russian news agency, across Europe, effective immediately. It'll take time for our systems to fully ramp up. Our teams continue to monitor the situation around the clock to take swift action. Swift action. Is Google YouTube a country now? I mean, it does have 140,000 employees. That's as big as, a dozen small countries. But it's as big as a big country financially, and it has more power than any country when it comes to the internet, doesn't it? I mean, they literally banned Donald Trump when he was the sitting president. Why wouldn't they ban Vladimir Putin or any of his associates? Here's a former British politician, Nick Clegg, who is now a senior executive at Facebook. We have received requests from a number of governments and the European Union to take further steps in relation to Russian state-controlled media. Given the exceptional nature of the current situation, we will be restricting access to RT and Sputnik across the EU at this time. Here's the Globe and Mail reporting the news. They say, Russia's RT to be removed from Canadian lineup by Bell, Rogers, Shaw, and TELUS. The story doesn't have a word against censorship. In fact, they quote the Conservative Party as wanting the government to do more and harder and faster. Conservative interim leader Candice Bergen has called on Ottawa to issue an order of general application directing the CRTC to adopt a new broadcasting policy that revokes the licenses of such outlets so that Russia Today is taken off Canada's airwaves. Okay, so that's censorship, and that's the Globe and Mail. It's a bit weird to read of cheering for censorship in the Globe and Mail, given that China literally publishes a propaganda section written by the Chinese embassy, but made to look like a special news report in the Globe and Mail. It's called China Watch. Maybe you've seen it. China Watch makes it sound skeptical, almost hostile to China, but in fact it's written by the Chinese embassy and paid for by the Chinese embassy, and the Globe and Mail runs it in the middle of their newspaper. So that's fine. And so is pretty much everything from China, whether it's the Olympics or YouTube channels for Chinese propaganda, even though YouTube itself is illegal in China. So there's that. We have had censorship in time of war in Canada, World War II, for example. We have propaganda in times of war also, but Canada is not in a war. Canada is using someone else's war as an excuse to censor a TV channel for Canadians. And of course, no one speaks out. I'm not particularly a fan of Russia Today. I'm not particularly a fan of Russia. I probably watched a grand total of an hour of RT in my whole life. Say, do you think censorship of Canadian TV channels will stop with RT? That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.